Hey everybody, this is Kirk, and on this episode of So That Happened, Stories from the Sacramento 80s Music Scene, I'll be talking with singer and songwriter Caron Vikre. Hey Caron, thank you for letting me invade your home here with all this
No
gear.
invasion, perfectly fine.
So, were you born and raised here in Sacramento?
Yeah, this is my hometown.
Oh, okay. And what schools did you go to?
Let's see, we moved around a lot, so I ended up in high school at Rio Americano.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's where I took a lot of photography classes,
yeah.
by the way. So, yeah, so we're here with Caron Vikre. Caron is a singer, songwriter, and author as well. We'll get into that a little bit later. But in the very beginning, when did you learn music? How did that come part of your life? And when did you first realize, I can write songs?
Well, I don't know that I ever actually realized that. I didn't learn the way most people learn, which is, like we were saying, talking about where you hear a song that you like or have a band you like, and then you learn how to play guitar and imitate the artist.
Right.
I never learned that way. I started writing songs or making them up when I was in the 4th grade, and picked up a guitar and started making shapes with my hands, and thought, I don't really want to learn songs. I want to make songs. So I just started making up songs and, kind of got a little bit better as time went on. And then, that it just kind of progressed from there. I'm still not a great guitar player or anything.
So you never really took formal lessons on guitar?
I did for really briefly from a guy named Tiny Moore.
I took lessons from Tiny Moore as well.
Yeah, no, and I remember he used to interrupt the lessons. He got calls from people to go on tour and stuff.
Yeah.
But I that was very briefly, and I realized it wasn't for me. Like I wanted to get writing songs.
You could only play Hanging Down Your Head, Tom
Yeah,
so
right.
That's the first song I learned.
Yeah. He was a very nice man.
Yes.
But I really wanted to write songs.
Yeah.
And skip that part of it and go straight into songwriting.
So you learned chord shapes, you learned melody. How did the melodies and the harmonies and the words did that just come from you? Or how did that all start for you? Because your melodies and harmonies are just gorgeous.
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you. Well, for some reason, for me, writing melodies is the easiest part of songwriting. You can write a catchy melody in about 5 seconds. It's very easy to write melodies. The harder part is writing or doing the lyrics, and that takes more thought. And, I guess if you want to have more complicated chord structures and things like that, that takes time to develop that. But writing melodies was very easy. Harmonies kind of came about when I first started singing songs with someone else, which is my high school friend Wayne Huners.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's where actually the group Crayon started, which was my first band. Yeah. And Wayne and I would come home after school, and he'd join in and start singing songs that I'd written, and we just did it for fun. I met him in theater class and drama class, and so part of our after school sessions were just silliness and us trying to make each other laugh. And he just happened to be so good at harmony singing. He had such a beautiful voice, and he was so good at it. It just came naturally to him. The minute he opened his mouth, he had the harmony figured out.
So a true partnership.
Oh, yeah. I mean, not in terms of songwriting, but just in terms of singing. That's where Crayon kind of developed, with he and I doing that, and just for fun. And my dad found out that, knowing that we did that, he found out that there was going to be a songwriter showcase audition at Moon Studios, and with David Houston and this fellow named Bob Cheevers.
Bob.
And I thought, no, we can't audition for that. But my dad kind of pushed us. He goes, you should go audition for that. And Wayne and I were like, oh, I don't know. This is just silliness on our part. But we did. And I guess we did well enough to get into the show. And David followed me out to the car afterwards when we were loading our equipment. And he said, I want you guys to come back and do some demos. And we were like, oh. We felt like we'd been discovered. Like we felt like this was a big deal. We were just looking at each other like, can you believe this just happened to us?
Right.
And we came back and did demos that pretty much lasted for my entire life.
Wow.
Yeah, like demos and recordings and all that. My connection with David led to everything else. It changed my life completely. At some point, Wayne didn't, Wayne and I moved to San Francisco, and he didn't want to do Crayon anymore. He had other things in mind. I don't think it was creative enough for him because he wasn't the songwriter.
Gotcha.
So, but David and I continued. I moved back to Sacramento because I wanted to explore this, and I wanted to make CDs. Right. And, I guess first it was record albums, but then CDs. And I just wanted to continue with that, and get better because my whole emphasis was to try to get better and not make this a silly thing, but like to try to get better at doing something.
Exactly.
But David was a huge part of how Crayon came about. He got us a band. He put us a band together.
Yeah, you had some people that I've already interviewed, like Lance Tabor.
Oh, Lance wasn't in the band at that time.
He wasn't, but he did do some stuff with you.
Yeah, later on, when I did solo things, Lance was involved with that.
Who was the original, the first band that you remember?
Those were all people we didn't know ahead of time. So there was Jim Caselli playing drums. There was God, I can give you a whole list. You have to look at. We had different people at first because some of the people who played on the record were not the people who ended up in the band. Jim Beeler played guitar. Dave Bueller played keyboards.
And didn't Dave Houston also do some or play?
Yeah, I'm trying to. I think he played on that record. I don't remember. Yeah, I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did.
Yeah.
And I played guitar on that too. So just a variety of different people, and we had a. I'll tell you how, if you want to know, I'll tell you how that kind of came about.
Yes.
It's so weird. We went in there, did demos, and had a couple of songs that we had done, and we ended up having two managers, this radio guys, Tom Romano and Lee Kirk. Mm-hmm. And I guess they must have got our music to a radio station. And so I was at home. I was like 19 years old. I was still a kid living with my parents. And a radio station called and said, oh, we heard this song, Learning How to Love Again. Can we play it on the radio? I think it was K108. And, who does that? What radio station calls someone and asks them if they can play their song? Right. So we said, okay, sure. And then Croy called and they wanted to play the B-side of that. So we said, sure. And Wayne and I had never played a gig. We had never done anything like that. And already we were getting radio play. So we just had this single at the time. We didn't really have a band yet. And the single was doing really well. And so our first gig, once the band was kind of put together, was we had like few sold out shows at Sac State, where like we played to hundreds of people. It was very nerve wracking because
you'd never really performed.
Never performed, never played a gig. And, it was scary for us.
Sure.
Particularly me. But the band that David kind of got behind us, they were all sort of seasoned musicians, so it wasn't any big deal to them, I don't think. But for Wayne and I, it was like, we have to get up in front of these people and do this.
Right.
You kind of felt like imposter syndrome because it was not what we expected to happen to us.
Because that wasn't really your goal, was to be.
No, we were just trying to have fun and be silly.
Right.
We didn't have it.
See what silliness will get you.
Yeah, I know.
That's great. So then you started getting regional success, and then like KCRA came and did an interview with you with Betty Vasquez.
Right.
But listen up, folks. You're about to hear from a very special songwriter and singer. She's 28-year-old Caron Vikre. Her music has been described as soulful, sultry, and powerful. Standing room only audiences will attest to that. This Sacramento comes from a musical background, but it was her dad who encouraged her to audition for a local songwriter showcase, and the rest is almost history.
Sunday below the street, the sun came out this morning. In this house on the garbage heap, there are no curtains blowing.
Caron Vikre looks more like a magazine cover model, but she's one of the most promising singer-songwriters on the local music scene.
Only the hunters are only found. Only the haunts of a sorry.
Yeah, so we got some regional success, and then I don't know if Wayne and I set them out, but we started to get interest from record labels, and what the record labels said oftentimes is, we really like your harmonies, and I felt like that was our main skill. You know, they showed interest right away, and it was kind of happening really quickly, so we didn't really know what to do, and we weren't really prepared to handle that. You know, it was just too much attention too soon.
Right.
And Wayne just decided, we got to get out of Sacramento. We just have to go to San Francisco and go somewhere else and not have this. And so we both moved there and tried to kind of do some San Francisco things. But I have to say, you know, this is a plug for Sacramento music. At that time, Sacramento had so many more unique artists than San Francisco. In San Francisco, we found that a lot of people imitated each other. And the nice thing about Sacramento not being as much in the limelight for music at that time, a lot of really original people came here. And so the music was really refreshing in Sacramento, and not so much in San Francisco at that time. It was just a lot of the same thing, people imitating other people. And, you know, I just thought, I'd rather be in Sacramento.
You didn't feel that creative juice in you.
Yeah, I didn't want to imitate other bands, you know, because what Wayne and I were doing was very different than what they were doing, intentionally so. And I don't know, I just liked the creative vibe in Sacramento a lot better at that time. You know, I'm sure it's ebbed and flowed over the years, but at that time I just thought, no, I don't dig this scene. You know.
Well, doing this interview series, I've run across a lot of people with a very wide variety. During the 80s was a very unique time.
Yeah.
Not only in music in Sacramento, but in the world. There was a change going on.
Right.
And I think that your songwriting started to develop even more in the later 80s and into the 90s.
Yeah,
correct?
definitely true.
So what was after the initial success and then the running away from the initial success, what was the next steps that you took as a songwriter?
Well, this was in the late 80s. Wayne wanted to develop, you know, he became a businessman. He wanted to do something totally different. So I thought, I want to pursue this songwriting thing because I want to get better at it. So I moved back here, and David and I continued to record. I started doing solo things. At first, I didn't know how to do that, you know, because I was used to writing songs for Wayne and I, which had a lot of harmonies and stuff. And I didn't really know how my style would be on my own. And it did. So all through the end of the 80s, I continued to record at David's house, or David's studio. And never released anything, just practicing, you know, just like trying to develop my style. And then towards the end of the 80s, I was kind of starting to find my footing. And I thought, okay, I kind of see where I'm going with this. Crayon was very pop and very almost bubblegummy. Not even almost, it was very bubblegummy. And I kind of moved away from that a bit.
Right.
And so that kind of developed later on. I tried to improve my lyrics because, you know, I wanted to, I didn't want it to be like just throwaway stuff. Right. I wanted to take it more seriously.
Have some meaning to it. So,
Yeah. So I ended up doing that, and then finally I did start releasing CDs.
What was that first CD that you released?
I think it was just called Caron Vikre. It was just a self-titled. Yeah, we had another CD prior to that was almost going to be released, but we decided not to do that, and I just did the solo thing.
Gotcha. And speaking about, the lyrics and melding, did you write from personal experiences, or were you writing more from what you observed in life? How did those lyrics develop for you?
Well, that's kind of an interesting question, because I think with singer-songwriters, a lot of people think that their music is very autobiographical. And that was not necessarily the case for me. I wrote in the first person, but a lot of the things are very fictional. I wrote from an empathetic point of view.
Gotcha.
And so a lot of what I wrote had to do with whatever I was reading at the time. Literature was really important to me, so I might have been inspired by something I was reading.
Interesting.
And I put it in the first person, but it sounds very personal, but it may be fictional. But it's not anything. I mean, writing isn't always fictional, even when you intend it to be. There's nonfiction involved, and there are personal things involved. It might be a line or two, but generally speaking, most of the time it was pretty fictional.
And that's probably how you became a writer as well, is because continuing on with that story.
That part was it's easy for me to play characters in a song or a book, or oftentimes I would take a CD, and the whole CD itself was a project. It wasn't just song by song. They weren't just individual songs. They were individual songs that fit into a thematic structure within a CD.
Right.
So, I might have played the same character throughout the whole CD,
right.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, your music is very thematic. As you start listening to it, I see recurring themes, and the depth of them to me is beautiful. So,
oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Dead Swim. The Dead Swim is my favorite album of yours.
Thank you.
Do you have a favorite?
I don't know. I like things about every CD, and I dislike things about every CD. So,
as a true artist does.
Yeah. So I think, I don't know, Niche of Nonsenses has a few songs that I like the most, but it has other songs that I do not like at all.
Right.
So, it's kind of a mixed bag for me. I could pick and choose which songs I think.
Sure.
I'm proud of that one. I'm not proud of that.
So you got your self-titled CD. What was the next one after that?
That one was called Sakara, and that was with a couple of, we had a smaller group then, because Gail George, Kathy Elzy, Ray Elzy, and David. And we had a smaller group because I didn't have a drummer at that time. So it was that part was kind of awkward, but we spent a lot of time working on that. The harmonies on that, we spent a lot of time with. Really good harmonies from Kathy and Gail. And Ray Elzy's parts were really great guitar playing and stuff, very interesting guitar playing.
This hollow is the moving ground. This shaking is a chilly figure of trees. Call me the shadow's head. This greeting is a waving of weeds. This warning is a widow's bag of seeds.
That was our next one, and we played a lot of gigs as that group.
Okay.
And in fact,
in Sacramento?
Yeah, in Sacramento.
What was some of the clubs that you played at that time?
Wow. I
This
think
would have been-
Malarkey's maybe.
Malarkey's, great place.
That was a place we played. Actually, prior to that, we had, in between those two records, we played a lot of gigs with a much bigger band. Lance Tabor was in that band. And
Right.
so we played much, there was an in-between era, but that was my next CD. But I'm trying to think of all the places. We played a lot of places, but I
I know.
don't remember.
It's been 40 some odd years
Yeah,
ago,
yeah.
folks, but, there was a lot of great clubs at that time that housed not only, I think the beginning stages, there was a lot of top 40, but more towards the later 80s, a lot of original groups. And I mean, you had groups like, Cake that came out
Yeah.
here, and Oleander, and,
Right.
and those bands in the 90s, and Magnolia Thunderfinger. So, describe your process of when you decide to record or a group of songs, come about and hit you just right. Describe your process on how you go about not only laying those down, but fleshing all of that out.
Well, usually what happened was I'd have the first song I'd write. I'd plan the CD. I knew I was making another CD, and I wrote for a particular CD. So the first song that I wrote was usually a song we threw away. It usually wasn't a song that we ended up keeping, because I would be trying to find what the theme was.
The style.
Yeah. What's the theme of this next CD going to be? And then I would probably write a song where I think, okay, I get it now. I get where I'm going with this. And then I would just fill in the rest. It's like, I know my theme. I know my subject matter. I know the character that I am on this CD, and I'm filling it out.
Right.
And so, again, it depended on what I was reading at the time, like say, on Niche of Nonsensus,
Yes.
and even
What were you reading at that time?
I was reading Ralph Waldo Emerson. I got into Moby Dick, which was one of my favorite novels.
Yeah.
Thoreau, those kind of things. I was into the American Transcendentalists.
Sure.
So that kind of carried over, that inspired like a song called Always, and inspired a lot of the songs on that record. The next record was a little bit of a carryover from that.
After Nietzsche or after Sakara?
No, Sakara, I don't remember what came after Sakara, but on Niche of Nonsenses came the Dead Swim.
Yes.
So some of that was a little bit of a crossover from that, but you can tell there's like the Dead Swim has a lot of watery sort of imagery and stuff like that. So
yes.
But I was still reading the same material. Yeah, the same type of material. Like there was a song, Pulling Margaret from the Chowder.
Love that song.
Which sounds like it could be autobiographical. It is not. It was inspired by this woman, Margaret Fuller, who was an American transcendentalist, who drowned just off the shore of New England. And Ralph Waldo Emerson asked Henry Thoreau to go see if any of her papers had hit the shore, because she was in the middle of writing this really elaborate biography or autobiography, and she lost besides her dying, her work was lost. So Thoreau went there looking for anything that may have washed up on shore. So anyway, that's the kind of the inspiration for that song.
Pen's mighty earthring. Should I feel when I can think? Or should I swim when I can sink? By selfless Margaret Beth. The sea is not an angel's breast, and her discomforting caress. Heart is always in distress, or in the dose of death. When all the gods abandon ship, I've got this soaking manuscript. I just as soon hold on to it as hold my fucking breath.
But there are many songs that have other inspirations as well. But I can kind of judge where I was at the time by what I was reading and what I was into at that time. So
I'm glad you told me that, because that's one of my favorite songs on that album.
Oh, good.
And now it has more meaning to me.
Yeah.
So, see what happens when you decide to do a docu-series movie?
Well,
you learn things.
I usually don't like to say what things are about, because I feel like it spoils it a little bit for the listener.
It can. And there's a lot of artists that would say that. It's like, I want to leave some mystery to the whole
Yeah, and there's plenty of mystery to be had, but that's
thank you.
I just use that as an example.
Excellent. Now, so most of your recording career, you worked with David Houston, but you also worked with Anton Barbeau, who I interviewed a couple weeks ago. Talk to me about that process. He's a very creative guy. I love Anton.
Yeah.
But the difference between David's approach and Anton's approach. And what album was that, by the way?
That was The Dead Swim.
Okay.
Yeah, The Dead Swim. I kind of, since I'd worked with David for so long, it was good for me to get out of my comfort zone and work with someone else. I had known Anton since he was a little kid.
Oh.
He and his dad used to come to our Crayon gigs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was kind of a Crayon fan at the time when he was a little boy. So I've known Anton for years,
Okay.
and knew he played. So I thought, oh, he's a perfect choice. And they do have very different styles. Anton's, at the time, I remember the big feeling I had was that he did things backwards compared to what I was used to with David.
Okay.
And this was all good for me to like see how other people would do things. For instance, and I'm not sure if this is an exact thing that happened or if it's just me and just my memory being crazy, but I think I do a scratch vocal, and then he would do the harmonies before I put on my permanent vocal.
Okay.
Whereas David would do it the other way around. I would put on my permanent vocal, and the harmonies
after that.
would come in after that. And there's an advantage to that, because then the harmony singers sing with the lead vocal.
Oh,
If you do it
yeah.
the other way around,
Right.
the lead vocalist is trying to match up to the harmonies. Singers, and that's kind of backwards to me.
Right.
Yeah, so Anton's style is a little different. Anton also had he put more of himself, like there's more of an Anton imprint on that record than David put on when he was producing, even though there's plenty of David on there.
Right.
But David tended to, I don't know, I say get out of the way a little bit.
More of an invisible producer.
Yeah, more of an invisible producer. Anton is very present. You know, his style is very present. You know, and that's what you get. You know, it's a good thing. You know, that's what you get when you have Anton. So,
Well, Anton, I love that album.
yeah,
Kudos.
Yeah,
The
thank you, Anton.
songwriting and the production.
Yeah,
So-
thank you, Anton. Yeah, it was really fun to work with him. I enjoyed that completely.
Yeah, that's great, and it does make a difference. You know, whether you're an invisible producer or you're making your mark, it makes a difference on not only the timbre of the production, but the outcome as well. So yeah, everybody has a different take on that. So, but now and then after that, what came after that? Was that Niche is after Dead Swim?
Let's see. No, that was before.
Okay.
What came after that? Oh, I need to have them all in front of me.
Right.
I'm not one to listen to my music very often.
I've got it on my phone. We'll take just a
Okay,
quick
I
break.
think I have them over there. If I see them in front of me, I can figure it out.
Well, I downloaded them all this morning, so.
Oh, I know what it was. It was
A Likely Story?
A Likely Story.
There we
Yeah,
go.
there
All right.
That was the first one I
Here we're-
produced by
okay,
myself.
We're gonna come back now.
Okay.
Here we go. From coming
about
back
that.
from break.
Yeah, A Likely Story.
A Likely Story. That was the next album. wasn't
Yeah,
it?
that was the first one.
And that was
I started
that was
producing-
back to David, right?
No, that was me.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, that was me. And
Very good.
And
You felt like you
then-
learned enough about production that you wanted to.
well, we'd been playing those songs live, and it wasn't that far from what we were doing live.
Gotcha.
We'd kind of worked out the arrangements, and we had that ready to go. So
bones, sit on the ocean natural as they rock. Some things are bigger than love, some things are really not. I'm not a ghost, I'm just appropriately fair. I'm not the only one who's outside looking in.
same place I recorded the CD with Anton, which was called Inharmonic at the time.
Oh yeah, in harmonic.
Yeah, I
that
think
would-
they changed the name, but that was what it was called at the time.
yeah, that would have been John Bacigalupi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we went back there, and I recorded that. And then I, let's see, that was the last CD I recorded before I took a big break.
Yeah, and let's talk about that big break. There were some things that transpired not only in professional world, but in your personal life that kind of got you to take a step back from songwriting. What was that?
Well, towards the end of A Likely Story, I developed this nerve pain in my face, which was called trigeminal neuralgia, and it made first it made speaking a little difficult, and then it made singing really difficult.
Very different, yeah.
And I couldn't book a gig and count on the fact that I could perform. So I had to kind of ease out of that. And eventually it got so bad where I had it for like 10 years and I had to ease out completely.
Wow.
So I had to just, had to give it up because I rely on my voice to write songs.
Right.
Because I'm not a prolific guitar player, and I don't figure out the melodies on the guitar or anything or the piano, but I need my voice.
Right.
And so I couldn't use it.
But then you went into remission, correct?
For about 10 years, I went to, well, more than that, maybe. I finally got some medication that helped with that.
Okay.
So I did go into remission, which was huge.
Yeah.
And then I was able to come back right before COVID started and finish up some songs that we had done the drum tracks for prior to me quitting.
Yeah.
And that was the last CD that I did. Right.
With Steve?
Steve Mitchell, who has since passed away, but he played drums on that. I had the songs already, and Steve went in and did the basic tracks, and Paul played bass in the basic tracks, Paul Knutson. And, I couldn't finish it. I had these tracks, and then Steve passed away years later from a brain tumor, and Paul called me and said, I was listening to those tracks and Steve's parts sound solid. And I thought, well, I have those songs, and it always bugs me that when I can't finish something, because I'm very goal oriented. So it was, bothered me for years that I had these songs, I didn't finish it. I need to finish these. And with Paul's encouragement, I went in there and called David and said, would you work with me again? I haven't sang or played guitar for 10 years. I haven't opened my mouth to sing. I didn't even know if I could do it.
Wow.
So I wasn't sure. So I felt comfortable going back with David, since that's where I started.
Of course.
And we worked on it and kind of finished it up. And it was a little bit of a challenge, because when you don't do it for a long time, your ears get rusty and you just get a little rusty. But
eventually became Time in the Tall Grass, correct?
Yeah, Time in the Tall Grass.
Which is a great album.
Oh, thank you.
And it's probably one of your most acoustic and more mellow albums.
Yeah.
No, very beautiful.
Oh,
so
thank you.
I'm glad you came back.
No, and it was a good test for me, because, since I wasn't having any face pain, I was kind of thinking, do I want to get back into this?
Right.
And unfortunately, COVID happened in the middle of it. So the process was really long, and it was much longer than I wanted it to be. And I think I kind of lost a little bit of enthusiasm, because it took so long to finish it with all the COVID breaks and all that. And then also Kathy Elsie and Gail George, I called them up, because I'd worked with them before, called them up to see if they would want to sing on it, because I like their harmonies and they're fun to work with. But then Kathy Elsie passed away at the end of doing that. So again, it was just like, oh man,
There was a lot that went on to make that album.
Yeah, there was a lot, and it was, it was kind of heartbreaking, really, to tell you the truth. So, I mean, it wasn't when we were doing it, but at the end of it, I just thought, wow.
Yeah.
This is the third, and then Renee Gromacki, who sang on many of my other records, she also passed away prior to that. So I feel like I'd lost like 3 really great friends, musician friends, in a relatively short amount of time. And it was just like, I thought,
There's one specific song on there that, In My Backyard, that you did a music video with, and that was with Anton Barbeau and his wife, Julia.
Right.
So how did that all come about?
I think Anton called me and said that they do videos or something. And I thought, since I'm not playing gigs, and I'm not planning on doing that, maybe a video would be good. Yeah. And so he did that, and I went up to their farm in Auburn, Auburn. And lovely place. And Julia is a very nice person, did a wonderful job. And, it was one of those just kind of really done very quickly. Yeah. And, it happened to be like 110 degrees that day.
Was it?
Yeah, it was very warm, but it was a lot of fun.
Because, and that was that. I always knew where love was at. In my backyard, in my backyard, in my backyard. Alive, we had a...
Well, Well, it's a very sweet video. The song is excellent, but there are some moments in there that are very Anton Barbeau.
Yeah, sure.
Like the guitar where you're playing
Yeah.
guitar here and then you can do
How
the.
could it not be?
That was awesome.
That's my backyard. That's my backyard.
When the moon through the summer lies overcast.
Awesome. So, and Anton Barbeau's videos are very eclectic. So
Yeah.
Julia does a great job. So kudos.
Yeah, thank you.
But yeah. So in between A Likely Story and Time in the Tall Grass, you started doing some new things in life, writing,
Yeah.
correct? And most specifically, young adult books, right? How
Well,
did that come about?
Well, it didn't really come about that way.
Okay.
I didn't really intend to write a young adult book. And I thought I was writing just a regular book, but my editor at the time suggested that I make it a young adult because the protagonist was a young person.
Uh-huh.
But I really intended it to be kind of more of a hero's journey.
Okay.
With just happens, a la Joseph Campbell, just to sort of, just happen to have a young protagonist.
Okay. And had you always been into writing and it just kind of is a natural progression, or
No.
was it something new that you kind of developed?
No, I'd always been into reading. I don't know what got me into thinking I could write a book. I think what it was I was just wanting to be creative, and it was when my face pain was really bad and I couldn't sing. So I thought, I know, I'll write something, I'll fill that creative space with writing,
Right.
learning how to write a book. And it was a big learning process for me because I had absolutely no idea how to do that. I read a lot, but I didn't really know how to write a book, and I didn't really consider doing that. But I just went at it, and
How long did it take you to write that first? And how many books have you written since?
I just wrote that.
Just the one. How long did it take you?
I'd say it was over a year.
Mhm.
It took me a bit. It's a lot of work. Well, part of it was because I was trying to learn how to do it,
Sure.
and I wanted to learn about different genres and things like that, and kind of get my ideas sort of straight in my head. I think one of the things I did was, I wasn't a person who made up my story and knew exactly what I was going to do from the beginning to the end. I wrote a chapter, and then that chapter indicated what the next chapter was going to be, and that indicated what
There
the
you
next
go.
chapter was going to be.
You were living it as you were writing it.
Yeah, I was
There you
just
go.
saying, where is this going to take me? Where's this going to take me?
Very good.
And I set myself up. I thought, what are the weirdest things that could happen in the next chapter? And then I made a little list of the weird things that could happen. And then I thought, how can I make sense of all that?
Right.
And so I took all the weird things, and I thought, now it's your job to make sense of all those weird things you want to put in the next chapter. And so then I did. And so it kind of led me on to the next chapter.
Very good.
I kind of knew how it was going to end, but all the in-between stuff, I
Sure.
kind of just filled in.
The
So
character development.
Yeah.
And what's the name of the book?
it's called What's the Matter with Milford?
Aha.
Yeah. It's just a silly thing. And the other part of it was that I was trying to write something that would bring my music into it, without writing a song necessarily about my music.
Mhm.
The character, the protagonist, is a songwriter and happens to have written my songs. So my songs appear.
Wow.
But I wanted to do something that was a little sillier than my songs, because
Right.
my songs sound sort of serious. My solo work sounds
Yeah.
pretty serious. So I wanted to do something kind of more silly,
Sure.
and but still connect those two. And that's sort of what I did, because I'm not really that serious of a person. I'm kind of more on the silly side, or I'm a little bit of both, I guess. But my songwriting kind of just shows one aspect of me, and this was kind of more of my goofy side.
Hey,
Yeah.
we all need that goofy side.
Yeah.
If you were looking back at the 80s, the 90s, when all of this was happening with you, is there anything that you would do differently?
Wow, that's a very interesting question. I don't know. I feel like I was able to do everything I really wanted to do. In all the bands I was in, I never really wanted to tour. I never really wanted to be like a famous person or anything like that. What I wanted to do was be a songwriter and get better at it and make CDs. Those were the things I wanted to do.
And you did those.
And I did those. And so I'm a homebody, and I like to stay home and work at home, and that's what I was able to do. And I feel like I got to make all the CDs I wanted to make. I if I want to write songs now, I can still write songs. If that strikes me, I can write a book if it strikes me. I feel like I got everything I wanted. So I don't know what I would really do differently. The only thing I would think I would do differently, perhaps, would be not try to make it in the music business.
Oh.
You know,
And a lot of us tried that.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not what it cracked up to
well,
be.
and you
Even
know,
the people who did will say the same thing.
yeah. I mean, like, you know, I think you thought you were supposed to. Like, I thought to be ambitious and to get other people to be in my band and be interested, I thought I had to, you know, try to be in the music business. And I had lots of, you know, auditions. I had people interested in recording, but, you know, I don't know. I found at the time I found the music business in LA kind of seedy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and many of the times I went down there, I thought, oh, you know, I had to come in contact with some pretty seedy people.
Yeah.
And I thought, this isn't for me. I don't care about it. You
Yeah.
know, I'm not a person who would do anything to be famous because I don't really care about being famous. That means nothing to me. So
It was an expression and an art form.
yeah, I wanted to write songs and write better songs. I wanted to get better at that. And so I guess the thing I would do differently would be maybe like get over that, you know, because when I did get over that, which is fairly early in my trying to do that, in my career, I should say, once I kind of let that go, I started to have fun.
Yeah.
When I was trying to make it and go to LA and do auditions and care what, you know, that we were giving the A&R people what they wanted and all that stuff, I wasn't really enjoying that. I didn't enjoy having to deal with people that are like I didn't want to deal with.
Right.
And
They have their own interest, and then they're usually not aligned with yours.
yeah, I just like, no, I'm sorry, I'm the wrong person for you then. You know, I don't care about that. So I think what I probably would do would be let that go earlier.
Sure.
And just say, you know what, I enjoy what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. I don't care about working with famous people. I don't care about meeting famous people. I don't care about being a famous person. I'm just enjoying what I'm doing. And I think I would have maybe let that go earlier and had more fun. You know, when I did do that, like I said, I ended up enjoying myself and having fun at gigs. And it's so weird because when I was really, wanted to make an impression on music people, I got really nervous on stage. I got really nervous and I didn't know what to say in between songs. And, you know, I felt I felt a lot of pressure, you know, not just for myself, but to make people in my band happy.
Yeah.
And not blow it, you know?
Right.
But once I let that go, I couldn't shut up on stage. You know, like I relaxed. I wasn't nervous anymore. It was just like a completely different experience.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. That's the one thing.
Art for art's sake is there's something to be said for that, you know.
Yeah.
Just being true to yourself as an artist and not caring whether or not you're famous at it is I think is something that's lacking. People want to be more famous nowadays.
Yeah.
We've got Facebook and we got this and everybody's trying to compete, and the competition is stiff.
Yeah.
But music and writing and art is an art form that is a way to express. And I think if people would just allow themselves to just express themselves, they might actually be more fulfilled in life.
Yeah,
So,
because who needs that? Who needs that pressure? Who needs to try to make somebody else happy?
right.
You know, pretending to be someone you're not.
Exactly.
You know, like
and that's typically what it is.
Yeah.
Being
and, and I think a lot of it is because you expect that of yourself. You think, I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to want this, but I don't. You know, and you know, I think if a lot of people really looked at themselves and they really kind of reviewed what they enjoy about what they're doing, they think, you don't need this.
Right.
You don't need this. Don't you want to write the songs you want to write? You don't want to have to fit into some little narrow category and
some A&R person.
yeah, like, and they don't usually understand you anyway.
Right,
Like
right.
I felt like so many times I felt like, you don't get me. You don't get what I'm doing at all. And like, you know, you're trying to put me in a little box.
I don't think they really, again, we're just in a conversation here. I don't really think that they care much about that. They're seeing dollars.
Yeah, yeah.
And if they can make money off of what you consider your art,
Right.
then that's where it becomes, it's the music business.
Yeah.
And when the business goes above the music, then that's where people, you know, lose their identities and lose.
And I can understand why they would want to make that a business. But at the same time, they also make poor choices because they look at it that way.
Right.
You know, I remember there was some band that was really popular in LA at the time when I was going down there to do auditions. And I can't even tell you who they were. They were kind of like, I don't know, to me, it was they were like a joke band, but they were the hottest things in LA at the time. And their music sucked. And I thought, are you kidding me? This is where you're putting all your effort?
Right.
And I thought, and not only did it suck like musically, I thought this isn't even commercial. Like this appeals to people in Los Angeles. This is not going to appeal to people in the Midwest. It's not going to appeal to anybody else. Sure enough, it didn't, but they put all kinds of money into these bands. And I think if you didn't think about dollar signs all the time and you thought about putting out quality material, there would be people that would catch on. And that's what's nice about the way, about people being able to have recording studios in their home now.
Right.
And having the internet to work with. You might not get rich. You might not be
You're putting
famous.
out your stuff.
Yeah, but you're doing something creative that you love to do. And some other people will respond to it. It might not be a whole horde of people, but it'll be very meaningful for some people. And most importantly, it will be meaningful for you.
Yeah.
Which is the most important thing, because any creative project that you do, I mean, we tend to think that we're creating something and that all these people are going to love it. But really, no matter if it's painting or writing a book or making music, the main person who gets the most out of it is you, the person who's creating it.
Yeah.
And if other people like it too, that's wonderful. But you have to remember, this is for you to do. Like, this is your big moment for you. Yeah, your voice. This is your big moment to be uniquely you. And if somebody else likes it, great. But you're the one who's always going to get the most out of it.
Yeah.
And so, like that, with that approach,
Great advice.
yeah, you can enjoy yourself doing it. And you can do it forever. There's no age limit on it. There's no box that you have to fit in. You can do it forever.
Perfect sage wisdom from Caron Vikre.
Well, not really sage wisdom, but in line with what your question was, yeah.
My grandpa always used to say, well, he'd say two things. He'd say it was always the few who spoiled it for the many. He says, but it's always the many that spoil it for the few. And I thought, what are you trying to say? What he's saying is that if the majority of people are doing something, it's probably wrong.
Yeah. I mean, if you're imitating other people and your unique
Not
voice
being
is not
yourself.
Yeah, it's not coming.
So.
My dad was an artist, a painter.
Oh, he's got beautiful paintings.
Oh, thank you. And, they're all over my house.
One right there.
Yep. And he strictly painted for himself. He didn't try to make it as an artist in the world and become known. He was very introverted and very much on developing his own style. And he did that. And, I think if he didn't have like commercial success or anything, but what he did do was he developed an incredibly unique style that doesn't look like anybody else's work.
I've never seen any of this.
Doesn't look like anybody else's work. And that is really rare. And so, for any artist, having a unique voice is something to strive for. It's like, don't sound like somebody else. Don't paint like somebody else. Like, what do you see? What's your vision kind of thing?
Because we're all unique.
Yeah, and he was a good example for me to follow that. When I, observing him growing up, it's like, yeah, that's kind of the way I want to be.
That's awesome. And I guess he did actually, you used one of his paintings for...
Two of them.
Sakara, and what was the other one?
In The Niche of Nonsense. He was a big influence on me in terms of how you become an artist, and what the important part of being an artist is.
Being unique.
Yeah. And listening to your own voice, doing what is satisfying for you.
Very good. Caron, thank you so much for allowing me to sit down and talk with you. This has been great.
Thank you.
And again, people, please go out and look at Bandcamp, correct?
Yeah, Bandcamp.
Spotify, and she's got a whole bunch.
I have a website up there. You can look at that too.
Exactly. I encourage it because her stuff is wonderful. So thank you so much, Caron.
Thank you.
Yes.
So nice to meet you again.
Excellent.
Hi, this is Caron Vikre, the Sacramento 80s music scene. I was there. Where were you?